Hi there, everybody. We're
Good morning, Rabbi.
moving on. So we began last time with just the first 3 lines of chapter 5. So we'll just back up and we'll start with chapter 5 again. And so I want to remind people that on the Chabad.org website, there's under learning that category in the website. I think it's called learning. So it has a bunch of under Chassidut or Chassidism or something like that. So or Chassidic text, I forget exactly. You'll figure it out. So it has this entire text in the English. So please avail yourself of that. And for the people who are alive here, more or less alive. So maybe after class we could talk to someone. Could be we'll have somebody that'll be your job to make copies of the English, and I'll my job will be actually got in the mail the book form. I was doing it off the internet, the Hebrew text, which came out very poorly, but I ordered through Chabad the book so I can make copies of the Hebrew for everybody. So if someone would take the job of making copies of the English for everybody.
Is the computer in the office hooked up to a printer?
There is no computer in the office anywhere. So we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later.
So the Sefer is Hamim.
So it's called Heichaltzu. Yeah, that's the name of the Ma'amar. Okay. So we're trying to figure out what Midyan is. That's our whole job, and how Moshe Rabbeinu is somehow the war against Midyan and Moshe Rabbeinu are very connected to each other. Okay, so let's just begin with chapter 5 here, which we've done the first 3 lines. So now we can understand how the klipa, the forces of concealment of Midyan, are opposite the sphira of chokhmah. Chokhmah, somehow, that sphira of chokhmah, which could be translated as wisdom, even though that the word wisdom doesn't mean anything in the English word wisdom in terms of what chokhmah really is. So somehow that sphira is the antidote. It's the polar opposite. It's the antithesis of what Midyan stands for. Devita b'morei or marechet mem ot yud gimel v'zeh l'shono. Now, as we saw last time, that we quoted from this Kabbalistic book, where it says Midyan nikra haklipa lekabel abba. So Midyan is the klipa, which is the opposite of Abba. As we pointed out last time, Abba is a symbol for Chokhmah. Ima is a symbol for Bina. Wow, you guys graduated. That's amazing. Now you're graduate students. Don't leave.
Don't forget.
Okay. And as we pointed out last time, the essence of Chokhmah is the idea of self-abnegation, bitul, right? That's the concept of chokhmah, as alluded to, as we pointed out last time, in the very word chokhmah, that if you turn around the first 2 letters of the word chokhmah, you get koach, the power of manas. And it's interesting, there's a Hebrew word, people have a name, Manas. It's famous Rabbi Manas Friedman. So manas, the idea of manis, right? To be manis, so that is a symbol for self-abnegation. As we pointed out last time, that Moshe referred to himself as when the Korach, the rebellion against me, said, what are we? Nachnu ma, we're nothingness. Go pick on somebody your own size. That's sort of a way of kind of ironic way of thinking about it. Go pick on some egomaniac like yourself. Okay? Your own size. You're a big, blown-up guy. That in the most complete way, in the light of the infinite God. Okay, here's the new material. That was all a review. Okay, so Chokhmah, which is Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, we'll make that connection later. That represents this idea of feeling one's nothingness, the complete subjugation of ego. So now the rest of this chapter and actually the next few chapters are going to be dealing with a pretty complex anatomy lesson about how the sfirot relate to each other and the process of creation. What happened in terms of how the sfirot, these divine emanations, creative emanations, organize each other, relate to each other in the process of the world coming into being. Okay. Now, remember, we have the three intellectual divine emanations. Everything is reflected also the way we're built, right? So the Chokhmah, Bina, Dat, those are the three intellectual. And then we have the seven more emotional, associated with emotions, the Midot, okay? So the Chokhmah, its relationship with the Midot, the seven lower emotional expressions of divine creativity. So Chokhmah is the source of bitul, self-abnegation, in the way it empowers the Midot to, in fact, self-nullify. It's the source and empowerment of self-nullification. Okay, so now you ready for this? So you put on your Kabbalistic caps there. So this is, we'll just translate it and then we'll explain. This is the concept of the name Ma, Memhe. Because remember we're talking about the word Ma?
Yeah.
Okay. So it happens to be also that there's a name of God called the name Ma. Okay, now what's that all about? So there are 4 different names of God that have to do with the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei, that name of God, can be written out in various ways. And depending upon how you write out God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the numerical value which results from that, it represents a certain way of divine creation and expression in the world. And it then the name which is used, the terminology to refer to that name are the Hebrew letters which signify the number that results from adding up this sum of the letters of how you write out God's name in that particular way. Okay, so the names of God are Shem Av with an Ayin, Shem Sag, Shem Ma, and Shem Ban. Now, we just learned here that this idea of Chokhmah, okay, which is self-abnegation, nothingness, so that is Shema de Tikkun. It's God's name Ma in the world of Tikkun, in the world of repair. Now, we're going to explain what that is. Everybody ready? Are your seatbelts on? Airbags activated?
How about oxygen, huh?
Oxygen? Okay. So, the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, 4 Hebrew letters, right? Yud Kei Vav Kei. This works better with a whiteboard, blackboard. I don't think they make blackboards anymore.
They do.
Okay. So, that name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, obviously is Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. Now, what if you wanted to write out each of those in Hebrew, write a Yud, not just the letter Yud, but the word Yud to spell it out, and Hey and Vav and Hey. So the part that is you don't have much flexibility about is if you wanted to write Yud. Remember, not just the letter Yud, but you wanted to write the word Yud. So how do you write Yud in Hebrew? Just guess. Yud. Now, if you just said Daled, that would look like Yad. So if you wanted to say Yud, you probably better to write a Vav in there. Very good. Yud Vav Daled. Yud. Okay. Now, then what's the next letter in that name of Hashem? It's a Hey. So how do you write Hey? So you could actually write Hey a whole bunch of different ways in Hebrew. You could say Hey Hey, like the letter Hey Hey. You could say Hey Yud. You could say Hey Aleph. So this particular name of Hashem, Shema, is generated by using the letter Hey as much as possible in order to indicate the way you would write out all the letters of God's name. Okay, so I'm going to explain. So the the letter hey doesn't make much of a sound, right? So
It's very light.
the hey and the olive. Did I say hey or olive?
No, it's
Say
okay.
hi.
I meant to say olive.
Oh, the olive? Okay.
Okay, let's just go back. Brain, mouth, not easy this early in the morning. I meant to say olive. Olive does not have much of a sound, neither does hay for that matter, but olive really has very little sound. So it is sometimes used in Hebrew to indicate a vowel. Now, as you all know, that the Hebrew language is written classically with only consonants, no vowels. So, which can be very confounding for people trying to learn how to read from the Torah, for instance. So, if I wanted to write the name Larry, right? So that's the equivalent of English. So I would write it with an L, an R, and that's it. Yeah, take away all the vowels, right? So you look at LRR. I don't know, the Long Island Railroad. I mean, what does that stand for? So this is the great. So the Torah itself, the vowel points that we use, the thing one looks like a T, one looks like a straight line across, and all those things. And then the 3 dots like this, and then the 3 dots like this. That's a later invention. That was invented very late in Jewish history, in Tveria, in the town of Tveria, in the northern part of Israel, like actually in the very early Middle Ages. It's very late, like 10th century. So, but the Torah itself, a lot of people don't know this. The Torah itself has a way to, when it decides to do it, when Kodesh Baruch Hu decides to do it this way, to indicate vowel sounds, not with the kind of dots that we use nowadays, which were invented later by the sages at that time, but by using certain consonants, double tasking. But a letter, which is really a consonant, but to use it sometimes not to make the consonantal sound, but to make a vowel sound. So, for instance, the Hebrew letter Yud. Okay, so that's a consonant. What sound does a Yud make? A Y sound, like a Y sound. Okay, Y. But the Torah sometimes uses a Yud to indicate not the consonant, but an E vowel. Okay.
Or O.
Yeah. So, or sometimes an A sound, right? So those are called emot kriya, those letters. That sometimes the consonants can be used to indicate a vowel. So the aleph does that. Even though the aleph is technically speaking a consonant, it sometimes can be used to indicate a vowel. So when I want to say hey, which is the second letter of God's name, so I could write that hey aleph. So the letter aleph can indicate an A sound sometimes. Okay, it's being used as a consonant, as a vowel.
Yeah.
Vowel. Gotta get it right, or else I'll confuse everybody. Okay, so I'm writing out Hashem's name. So the Yud Vav Dalet. Can anybody tell me the numerical value of Yud Vav and Dalet?
10, 6, and 4, whatever that is.
10, 6, and 4.
There's a former engineer here. He's even forgot to add numbers. It's 20.
14.
It's 20. And then hey.
Yeah, that would be
Now that's the second letter of Hashem. Now I'm going to write this name of Hashem. Shema is using aleph as much as possible. So that's hey aleph, and that equals 6. Now what's the next letter of Hashem's 4-letter name? Vav. So I'm going to write Vav, and I'm going to indicate the Vav. I'll use that aleph to do that. So Vav, aleph, Vav. Okay, that's 13. And then what's the last letter of Hashem's name? Hey. I'm going to write that out. Hey, aleph. Use that aleph as a vowel again. So this name of God, Shem Ma, is used by using alephs. Okay? Now, the sum total, and I did the math.
Oh, great.
You even have to write it out.
I can't do it.
Okay? So the sum total of, if I write Yud Vav Dalet, hey aleph, Vav, aleph, Vav, and hey, the last letter of God's name as hey aleph, which is 6. So you get 45.
Yeah.
What are the letters which signify 45 in Hebrew? A mem is 40. 5 is letter hey. Ma That's called Shema. We got it.
45.
Okay, that's called the name of God, Ma. Okay, so that Ma is Hashem's name. Okay, as it expresses itself through Chokhmah, which is the expression of complete self-abnegation. Okay, how's that for a long explanation for? Yes, Elisheva.
And then you can bring it down to 1 to a tet. 4 plus 5 is a tet for goodness, for Tov. 4 plus is
So you say
9.
45,
It
you take a
becomes
word
9.
5.
It becomes 9, which is a tet
Oh,
for
that
goodness.
was an interesting idea. Okay. So in any case, this idea of Chokhmah is the force of the takeaway from this, putting away all the technical discussion, is that Ma represents the Yud K Vav K, and as it represents the force of self-abnegation, which then empowers the Midot, the lower 7 Sfirot, to in fact become self-abnegated, and therefore also to produce unity. Okay, which is going to be the end zone here. Let's go on.
Ma's the Abba.
Excuse me?
That's the
Ma
Abba.
is Abba.
Chokhmah is Abba. Right, that's another term. Okay. Vayin ma shektuv mizeh barichut b'Torat Chaim Dibur Machav Bereshit Drush Ha-Bet. Okay. V'lachen bechinat Chokhmah tachlit ha'itchalut. That's why Chokhmah. You ever see where we are now?
Yeah.
That's why Chokhmah is the aspect of the absolute extreme of inclusion, hitkalut, inclusion. Because when can you feel inclusive to be part of something? Only when there is
Nullification.
abnegation, self-negation. As explained in the Shalom Michael, as is explained in this other place. Where it talks about the coming into existence of the letters in a way which creates a differentiation, right? You know, the whole process, this is great, the great irony and the great inner tension. Creation can't take place without differentiation, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's the very
Yeah,
essence of
separate-
creation.
separation.
Because if there wasn't a separation, there'd only be Hashem. There'd only be Hashem, right? So the very essence of creation is the notion of differentiation. But then the trick is, how does that differentiation express itself? So the very existence of the letters, the creation of letters of expression of creation, that's how we create ourselves through speech. That's why the Torah always talks about Hashem creating through speech.
And also physicalness as well.
What do you mean?
Well, look at 2 cells, how they fertilize and divide.
That's true. All creation is differentiation. Beautiful metaphor there. But even though the creation in its very essence is differentiation, but if you were to trace that process of differentiation back through the Sfirot, you know, going from the Midot, the lower Sfirot, trace it back to creative divine force up to the highest Chokhmah, there is no differentiation. That's the power of Chokhmah. It's the source which is one. And that's because Chokhmah is this notion of Ma, of absolute nothingness, of self-abnegation. And therefore, it's the utmost oneness and inclusiveness. Now, we're going to get into a very interesting question now. I'm just going to tell you the question, and then we'll read the words. The question is the following. It's really interesting. What is the first, this is cruel, to ask a question so early in the morning. What is the first blessing we make in the Shmona Esrei that is unique to the weekday Shmona Esrei? In other words, the first 3 blessings are always the same. The last 3 blessings are always the same, no matter what the occasion is, right? So the first thing is talking about the patriarchs, right? And then the next one is talking about God's power, resurrection of the dead. Excellent. Zev is awake. And then the third is talking about God's holiness, right? Kedusha. And what's the next one? The one that's now the unique one. Larry checks in the mail. Excellent. So that is Binah. What's Binah mean? Is it talking about God's, I'm sorry, the fact that God granted us? Right. Let me ask you a question. So, as a matter of fact, in the Chabad version of that, does anybody remember how it concludes the words? You can even open, I mean, that's not a Chabad Sidur, but Chochum Bina V'dat. It uses those three Kabbalistic terms of Chochum Bina V'dat, those three parts of intellect. Ready for next question? See if you're super awake. When on Motzei Shabbat, Saturday night, when we want to distinguish between the Shabbat and the Sweet Hamavdim and Kodesh L'Chol, what blessing of the Amidah was that Havdalah put into? That one itself, right, is put into that bracha itself. Why? Because the idea of separation, right? Havdalah is separation. That notion of separation is a function of what? Intellect, right? In the very essence of intellect is making distinctions, discernment. That's why we make the Havdalah, particularly within that blessing. So the very essence of intellect seems to be what? Making distinctions, differentiation. Well, now we got a problem. Because what do we say Chokhmah represents?
What's the unity?
Unity, lack of distinction, right? So, but we know that intellect seems to be the source of making distinctions. So starting tomorrow, we're going to show how we can reconcile those two seemingly contradictory elements, right? That on the one hand, intellect seems to be Kabbalistically unity, chokhmah, self-abnegation. On the other hand, it seems to represent the idea of discernment, distinction, differentiation. That contradiction. That will be resolved, Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.
Have a great day.